My wife and I were married for 8 years by the time all this happened. She was the fourth grade math teacher at the local middle school. The principal of the school worked with her for 9 years, and they were good friends. I always trusted them and believed their relationship was strictly professional. My wife was a teacher for so long, I never expected her to do anything to jeopardize her career. Maybe she didn't think anyone would ever find out what she was doing, but that's a foolish thing to believe. She forgot her phone one day while she was at work, and I found it in the couch cushions. Although I didn't expect to find anything interesting, I started snooping through her phone. I found messages from the principal to her. That wouldn't have been very strange, but I only scrolled a little bit before the conversation took a scandalous turn. She had sent him a picture showing things that were only meant for my eyes. The picture was after he asked her if she was attracted to him. The part that broke my heart the most was when he mentioned how wonderful her body felt. The principal was a married man, which made it even more appalling. Their messages went back for a long time. I couldn't even determine when their message chain started. There was a lot of steamy talk that angered me greatly. I had enough reading and decided to call Mrs. Principal. She was really confused to hear from me, but I explained that I was the husband of the fourth grade teacher at the school where her husband is the principal. She wanted to know why I was calling. This was the difficult part. I stuttered and tried to find the words, but I eventually told her that I found messages on my wife's phone from her husband. Then I added that the messages implied they had a sexual relationship. She gasped and started choking on her words while she asked me questions. Eventually, I just told her I would send her screenshots of the proof and her phone number. After she read through a lot of them, she told me she was going to call the vice principal and local superintendent. I braced myself. My wife was going to be in serious trouble. In one day, she lost her career and husband. I felt bad for her and myself, but I only felt bad for her because I cared about her deeply for a long time up to this point. Who knows how long she hid this from me? I know I certainly didn't deserve it. I remembered my mom convinced me to do a prenup before my wife and I got married, and now I was relieved. It just ensured that I would get to keep the house. As soon as I thought about this, I got the first panic text from my wife. She said something strange was happening, and she needed to call me in a few minutes. I didn't reply, but it took her 45 minutes to call me. She was crying, and I could hear people talking in the background. She said she was called into the meeting room and fired for having too close of a relationship with the principal. I didn't respond too quickly because she wasn't being completely honest with me. I just asked if the principal was fired too, and she said yes. I asked her what kind of relationship they had, and she went silent. She finally asked me if I found her phone. After I said yes, there was a lot of silence. That's when I stopped pretending and told her that I found all the messages between the two of them. I also told her that she needed to move out of the house today because it belongs to me. I made it clear that this was all her fault and that she did this to us. Now she would have to face the consequences in her life. She sobbed and apologized, making promises and trying to convince me to stay on the phone. She thought she could use the emotional connection she had with me to change my mind. But she was wrong. I was my own support, and I didn't need her to function or have a good life. I wasn't afraid of the challenge she presented to me. I didn't feel the need to save her from the pain she caused. These were my thoughts as she rambled on the phone. I told her to be quiet and come pack up her things. I also warned her that anything left behind when I returned would be mine, and she wouldn't be allowed back in. While my wife's world was falling apart, I had inspiring and supportive conversations with my friend at his house. She and the principal were now homeless and jobless. His wife immediately kicked him out of the house and he lost his job. The whole town knew about their affair, so they were quickly labeled as homewreckers. The last I heard of them was that they had to move out of state to escape the consequences of their actions. Not a day goes by where I regret my decision to leave my ex. The first few nights were tough, but I immersed myself in my hobbies, like building model trains and miniature scenery. It was a fun and time-consuming activity. Before I knew it, I had become a sought-after bachelor in town and started dating. I'm taking things slow to heal mentally from what I've been through, but I've had some casual relationships with women in my area since the incident. Overall, things have turned out great, and I want people to know that leaving a cheating spouse is not as scary as it seems. Lie. I am so sorry you had to experience the shocking betrayal of your wife of 8 years. No one should have to go through that. It's a shame that it happens so often in today's world. Families are meant to be permanent and survive all trials and temptations together. Your wife was tempted by something that only benefited her, so I believe you made the right decision to start over. Your story gives hope to our viewers, and I thank you for sharing. I wish you all the best. Now for today's second story. This actually happened to me, and it makes me believe that karma is real. I married my wife when I was 24 and she was 28. She had a boyfriend who was in prison for 5 years by the time we got married. For obvious reasons, I assumed that they had broken up. Without any chance of ever seeing each other again, she didn't tell me that they had been writing each other letters and talking on the phone every week since he was locked up. She also never told me that he was scheduled to be released on our second wedding anniversary. I know she knew about it because she made up an excuse to leave the house alone that night. She went so far as to fake a phone call with her mom, claiming they needed help to move something heavy. I was a fool for believing her without question. I let her go that night without knowing that she was his ride to where he was staying. She was gone for an hour and a half, which just felt way too long to be helping her parents move something at their house, 5 minutes away. I called her just as she walked in the door. She looked very pleased and amused. I asked her how it went, and it took her a few seconds to remember what excuse she gave me. She finally said, "Oh yeah, it went great. It wasn't really that heavy. I think they just wanted to see me." I asked what they talked about, and she just looked at me like that was a weird question. I stared at her expectantly, thinking it shouldn't be hard for her to answer if she was telling me the truth. She started sweating and stammering. She made up something, but her improvisation wasn't convincing. Then she went off to bed, giving me a lame excuse on our anniversary night. I hate to say it, but her sneaking away went on for another 3 months. She acted so happy while she was at home, it made me think everything was great between us. We even had wonderful sex, which bothers me a lot now that I know what was going on behind my back. Everything started falling apart when she told me she was pregnant. I didn't believe it was possible because almost every time we had sex, she made me use a condom. Funny enough, she was making her husband use a condom while she had unprotected sex with her felon boyfriend. Now, I believe she wanted to get pregnant by him so she could leave me for him and guarantee that he would stay with her. Ew. Well, her plan backfired. As soon as it was possible, I had a DNA test done on the child. She tried to resist the idea at the doctor's office, but quickly realized that it made her look like she was hiding something. The DNA test came back as a surprise. I was not the father. Now get this. She had the nerve to tell me that DNA tests can be wrong. So while we waited for the second test results, I made her stay at her parents' house. She absolutely hated this. I think she hated it because she tried to move in with her baby daddy and he wouldn't let her. Her parents didn't know anything was up yet, but they wouldn't be in the dark for much longer. I knew she wasn't just going to stop visiting her secret lover, so it was time to follow her. I sat in my running car down the street from her parents' house in 0-degree weather. She got in her car around 9:45 p.m. I followed her at a distance, but relied heavily on the family location app she forgot she had on her phone. She went inside a house with loud music blasting from it. I don't know how many people were in there, but after a while, she came out with a man and they drove off together. After 8 minutes, I felt brave enough and determined enough to sneak up to the windows. I peeked in and saw several people mingling around. I found a bedroom, but I couldn't see very well through the window. I swore I could hear my wife, but the music was so loud that I couldn't be sure or record it. I went back to the car and waited until she came outside. 39 minutes later, I snapped a picture of him saying goodbye to her, but it was really poor quality. I thought it was really sad that he was obviously just using her, and she wasn't welcome to stay much longer than what was necessary. I filed for divorce before the test results came. When her parents saw their pregnant daughter being served divorce papers at their door, they were shocked. My wife was kicked out shortly after that. Her cries and attempts to explain why this was happening just didn't make sense to her parents. They knew she must have had a secret lover who would take her in if she had nowhere else to go. They were right. After they kicked her out, she was picked up immediately by her felon baby daddy. I watched her social media during and shortly after our divorce, and whenever she posted pictures of the baby or her and her baby daddy, the house looked absolutely filthy. She stayed there until their baby was 3 weeks old. That's when she walked in on him having sex with another woman. My ex absolutely broke down at that point. She stopped caring for the baby and was taken to a mental health facility to recover. The felon baby daddy wasn't that great at caring for a child on his own, so the baby was taken into Child Protective Services shortly after that. It's been 1 year since all of this happened, and my ex is still in the Meadows. When she was first admitted, she would try to call me at least once a day and leave a voicemail full of apologies and tears. Sometimes I answered, but our conversations were so awkward and empty. There was no way she was going to win me back at this point. She had destroyed the life and trust we built together. Eventually, she stopped calling me, and all I know is that she hasn't been released yet. I have yet to begin dating again. I feel so relieved to have gotten a chance to recover from the emotional destruction she caused me. I'm building a relationship with myself. I didn't realize it until after I was single again, but I was living each day hating things about myself. That's why I started working on after I left my wife. Self-improvement and self-acceptance. I'm the only one that's going to be there for me through everything I encounter in life. I'm grateful for my dad and the few friends I have in this world. They helped me through the hard times and abrupt changes. OP, your story is quite shocking. I read a lot of these stories, but I'm always surprised when a wife manages to hide a secret relationship from her husband. I'm so sorry you had to endure the emotional torment that accompanies marital betrayal. Your wife made a terrible and selfish decision to have an affair. Having an affair with a felon, it is clear that her life was much better when she was married to you. I feel like her decision to stoop so low is a reflection of how she sees herself, unworthy and seeking approval from anyone. I am happy to hear how you handled the situation and hope that those going through a similar experience will stay strong and follow your example. Stay strong, OP. Thank you all for the support and for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened. Take care.